All right, let's dive into what might be the single most important step in any big project, getting the problem right from the very beginning. We're talking about the define phase of Six Sigma. Nailing this one step can save you from a world of wasted time, money, and effort. So let's get into it. So, I want to kick things off with a question for you. What do you think costs a company more than a really big, nasty, complex problem? Just think about that for a second. What could possibly be worse? This. This right here, a brilliant, elegant, maybe even expensive solution to a problem that wasn't the real problem in the first place. All that work, all that brain power, all that money, poof, just gone. And that is the exact nightmare scenario that Six Sigma is built to prevent. And that brings us to this core idea, which is so simple, but man, is it powerful. Solve the right problem. That's the whole point of the define phase. It's all about making sure you build an absolutely rock-solid foundation before you even think about building the solution. Now, this define phase, it's the very first step in a 5-stage framework called DMAIC. That stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. Think of it as the step-by-step engine at the heart of Six Sigma, the teams use to tackle problems in a really smart, systematic way. And today we're zeroing in on that crucial first step. So what really goes on in the define phase? The best way to think about it is like the project's official kickoff. It's where you do all the critical prep work to make sure this thing is set up for success from day one. In a nutshell, the define phase is where you get incredibly specific. You're not just saying sales are down. You're describing the problem with precision, you're making sure it's the right kind of project to even be working on, and you're setting goals that are crystal clear. Ambiguity is the enemy here. So the goals are pretty straightforward, but they are absolutely vital. First, you've got to understand the purpose, and just as important, the scope, what's inbounds and what's out of bounds for this project. You'll create a map of how things work right now, you'll figure out what your customers actually expect, and you'll get real about timelines and costs. It's kind of like being a journalist, really. You're answering those fundamental 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. Now, all of this awesome critical information, where does it live? It can't just float around in a bunch of emails and meeting notes, right? No way. It gets put into one of the most important documents of the whole process, the project charter. This thing is your project's official blueprint. So the charter is this high-level guide that really explains the why behind what you're doing. And it's not some static document that gets filed away and forgotten. It's a living, breathing thing that the team uses as its North Star. It keeps everyone on the same page, all pulling in the same direction. So let's crack this thing open. What's inside? Well, you've got the business case. That's your why are we even bothering? You have a super clear problem statement and goal statement. That's your what. The scope, that sets the boundaries. Milestones map out the journey. And resources tells you who's on the bus. See? All those core questions answered right here in one place. Okay, a huge piece of defining the right problem is seeing it from the perspective that matters most, the customers. This whole idea is called capturing the voice of the customer, or VOC. I mean, think about it. If you make a change that you think is an improvement, but it doesn't matter one bit to your customer, did you really improve anything at all? And what's really cool is how you can listen. You've got 2 main approaches. On one hand, you have the reactive stuff, waiting for problems to come to you through complaint logs or tech support calls, but the real gold is on the other side, the proactive approach. This is where you actively go out and hunt for insights through things like interviews, surveys, and my personal favorite, direct observation. What's famously called going to the Gemba, which just means going to the real place where the work actually happens. One of the great quality gurus, Joseph Duran, he just nailed it with this quote. He said, "Quality means fitness for use." It's that simple. Quality isn't some abstract concept. It just means, does this thing, this product, this service, do what the customer actually needs it to do? And listening to the voice of the customer is how you find that out. So the define phase isn't just a bunch of meetings and conversations. You're actually using specific tools to help you see the process more clearly and to make these big ideas like quality something you can actually measure. Let's look at a couple of the big ones. A fantastic tool for getting that 30,000-foot view is called a SIPOC diagram. It's a simple way to map your process from a bird's eye view. You just identify your suppliers, the inputs they give you, the core steps of your process, the outputs that come out of it, and finally, the customers who get those outputs. It's such a clean, powerful way to see the whole system in one shot. And to make that goal of quality even more real, Six Sigma sets a target that is Well, it's pretty staggering. A Six Sigma level of quality means you have no more than 3.4 defects for every million chances you have to make one. Think about that. 3.4 out of a million. It's an incredibly high bar, and it gives the entire project a very clear target to shoot for. Okay, so let's tie this all together. Look, the biggest temptation in any project for any team is to jump straight into fixing things, to start brainstorming solutions. But the most important lesson from Six Sigma is to resist that urge with everything you've got. You have to define before you dive. Every single successful project is built on that solid foundation you create right here in this first phase. So by the time you're done with the define phase, you don't have a solution yet, but you have something that's maybe even more valuable. You have absolute clarity. You walk away with a clear problem statement, a defined scope, you understand the financial impact, you have clear goals, and, the big one, you have an approved project charter. That's basically your green light to move forward with total confidence. So I want to leave you with one final thought. As you go about your work this week, just ask yourself this. What's one solution you see at your job, or heck, even in your own life, that might just be a really clever answer to the completely wrong question? Because just spotting that is the first step to truly defining what really matters.